Hey everybody, so I thought I'd throw together a quick and somewhat informal video about what is it like to go to PAX, especially from our perspective as media. And we go to a lot of these events, so just to kind of bring everyone up to speed on what it is we do on almost a daily basis at the site, it's very travel intensive. So right now, through this first quarter of the year, the travel season's the worst for us in terms of activity. It's about every 2 weeks we're going somewhere. So it starts out, the year starts with CES, Consumer Electronics Show, that's in Las Vegas. Even though it's in Vegas, we're not doing any of the stuff that you would expect to be done in Vegas. It is entirely work, 12 to 14 hours a day, things like that. So we do that show, that's about a full week, and almost all the meetings are in suites, which is fantastic because from a media perspective, it means we're not shouting over crowds and we get very direct, sort of targeted looks at the new hardware. We can talk to the engineers and get an idea of things. So that's how CES kind of very top level works. Then from there, we'll normally go to PAX South or some other event in the future, maybe South by Southwest. From there, about 2 weeks later, we go to another local event. 2 weeks later, we start prepping for, depending on what time of year it is, it'll be PAX East, or it'll be ECGC, or it'll be Dreamhack in this instance this year, or any number of other events, including GTC and GDC. How could I forget those? So basically, it's CES into GDC. There's about a 1 to 2 week gap. So we fly to San Jose, fly back to North Carolina, and then 1 to 2 weeks later, we fly to San Francisco and do the other show, fly back to North Carolina. A couple weeks later, 2 weeks later, we'll fly up to Boston, come back to North Carolina, and stay here for about a week. And now in a couple days, we'll be going to Dreamhack, which is in Austin this year, and that's the first for Dreamhack. After that, it is Taipei and Computex and a China trip to see the factories. So very intensive season. But let's talk about what it's like to be at PAX East specifically. So this one's a bit of a different beast from most of these other events because it's not really a media-targeted event. It's a consumer event. That's really cool. It gives us a different look at things. It means that consumers are the heart of the show. If you want to go play games, you can certainly do that as a consumer. You don't have to have a badge. You don't have to be credentialed. So that makes it different. That also means that it's about 70,000 people for the weekend. And it means that if you look at the stats we just published from the wireless group at the convention center, they were seeing 15,000 concurrent users for Saturday. Concurrent, any 1 second, 15,000 users just on the wireless alone. And our team doesn't even connect to the wireless there. So there's plenty of people who aren't tracked as well. So you could have upwards of 20,000 people in that place at one time in the Boston Convention Center. The BCEC is a pretty nice convention center. It's massive. You could probably host like a monster truck rally in there if you wanted to. It's all indoors, basically a giant exaggerated basement, more or less. It comes up out of the ground though. But so very big. There's not a lot of twists and turns like at the PAX Prime Convention Center in Seattle. That means it's pretty easy to get around other than the crowds. Going there, you're basically fighting crowds constantly. If you've got camera equipment, well, good luck, because there's no regard for anybody when people are trying to get to their game to play it. But in terms of the media, we tend to book meetings about back-to-back every 30 minutes or so. I'll do some blocks, 2-hour block. We call them editorial blocks, and that's the time we take when we say, okay, we know we're talking to AMD and Intel at 9 a.m. and 9:30 a.m., for instance. And we put them back-to-back. So if we talk to them that time, we know there's going to be content coming out of those meetings. We know that it's going to be fairly high priority for our site. And knowing that, we'll just say, okay, well, let's take 10 to 12 and produce that content, or however long we think it may require. That's when Keegan will do all the video production work. I'll do the editorial work. If Patrick Stone's with us, which he normally is, he'll help me with research or his own editorial work. That's how that works. And we'll book back to back and travel from one booth to the next. Occasionally they're in meeting rooms, occasionally they're in a hotel, which is, again, phenomenal if they are. But normally it's in the booths, and so what happens is you're just corralled into this tight, very personal space to talk to these people. It's difficult to get any sort of, it's personal space, really, and so that makes it hard to film. But the hardware vendors are always fantastic. They're easy to work with because it's a gaming show. So hardware is very important at PAX. It's got a huge presence now, but certainly if you went to, say, Raffles notwithstanding the MSI booth or the Kingston booth, it will be less crowded than perhaps the Lawbreakers or the Overwatch booth. That's just the nature of the show. But other than that stuff, will work from maybe 8 or 9 a.m. kind of get up, 7 a.m. start working, get ready, go to the show floor at 9. And this is the fun part that you may not know about, and you should know about if you're going to go to PAX East someday. Because of the semi-recent events in Boston a couple years ago, security since then has been very heavy to get into the convention center. And that means that generally you should look at about a 20 to 30 minute window just to get inside. So that's not fun, of course. But once you get through security and the bag check, it's pretty easy going. We'll work from about 9 or 10 a.m. all the way through about 5 p.m. I try to finish up kind of early at the show, and then we go back to the room and we produce content for until 12 or 2 a.m. or however long it takes to get it all done. Wake up 4 hours later and do it all again. So that's kind of the basics. More advanced things, I suppose if you're going as a consumer, there's all these panels. They're really cool. So if you like to sort of see industry icons, or if you have very specific things in the games industry you're interested in, whether that's social issues in gaming, or if you want more fun things like just sort of stupid stuff that happened during the development of X game, or you want to see Gabe and Tycho, of course the creators of Penny Arcade, you want to see them compete. Playing Overwatch, there's all that stuff too, which we don't really cover a lot of that these days, just because it takes a lot of time. The panels, if you want to go to one, I would very strongly suggest showing up, probably if it's a popular one, maybe about an hour in advance. For example, which panels always felt? There was one with Alan Tudyk this year, who of course is known for playing Wash and Firefly. He was there. That panel is one where you'd want to show up an hour in advance, because they do fill up the room and you won't get in once it's full. That's just it. So definitely 30 minutes to an hour minimum to make sure you get in, bring something. This is something that I haven't thought of in a long time, because I haven't been an attendee in a very long time, 6 years. Yikes. But as media, we don't think a lot of things that attendees need to think about. So one thing, as an attendee, you have a lot of downtime because you're waiting in lines to go to panels or to go to play a game or whatever. I would suggest bringing something like Zombie Dice or some simple game. You can normally buy really simple games there, drop 10 or 15 bucks and make a friend in the line, play it on the floor. I've done that. I did that with Magic many years ago when I was actually waiting in lines. And when I say actually waiting in lines, that's not like, look, we're media, we can cut the lines. It's not how it works at PAX. So that is maybe how it works at some conventions, GDC certainly. And it's for good reason. You know, we've got back-to-back meetings, they've got back-to-back meetings, we're both trying to do our jobs, so it makes sense. But at PAX, it is still consumer targeted. So to get ahead of the line means we book ahead of time, we book a special meeting, show up with other media, and then we all play the game together, do a brawl, and everyone goes about their job. So it's maybe 10 to 20 minutes to play the game, or less in some cases, talk to the devs, get out of there and write the content. And that is chaotic in many other ways because we're all competing with each other. But as an attendee, definitely keep in mind the line times. And there's some other pretty cool stuff too. I mean, cosplay is cool if you do that, or if you want to take photos of it. It's a great place to practice photography. If you are into tabletop games, there's a lot of that there. One cool place to visit if you ever go to PAX is the Bring Your Own Computer, BYOC. So they have this whole, normally Intel or iBuy or Cybertron was the sponsor this year. They'll normally sponsor these free play computer areas. So you go stand in line, you get in, you get put on a computer, you stay however long you want or until they kick you out. You can play the games that are there, or you can log into your own account, play your own games, but either way, there's an area next to it called the BYOC area. These are popular at LAN events like Dreamhack, and you bring your system. Every now and then there are some really cool case mods, and so Bob Stewart has made some. Dingo, he's another modder. He's made some Falcone, Charlie Falcone, Dingo. And then Rod Rosenberg, which works with Bob. All these pretty well-known people, modders, who do awesome case mods. And they'll bring that stuff. There's a couple others as well. So you can walk up to the BYOC area and say, do you mind if I get an escort to walk around and take a look? And they'll be happy to do that for you. So that is done by enforcers. Enforcers normally wear red or blue shirts, and they are volunteers. They do it completely for free. They'll work 6 or 8 hour shifts, and the exchange is basically Penny Arcade says, you know, you work the show for us and we'll give you free passes, and then you can play around for 1 or 2 days or however long it may be. I don't know the exact details, but those are the enforcers. They're kind of the peacekeepers. They make sure everyone corrals into the booth rather than standing in the aisle. But hardware presence has grown a lot lately. AMD was there for the first time this year. I haven't seen them there before at PAX East. They're at PAX South this year, first time. Intel is always there. NVIDIA, pretty much always there. This year they skipped the show floor and they did an event outside. And that's another thing to know, is if you're interested in external events, like the Star Citizen team almost always does one. This year they're keeping their heads down because they're trying to finish Squadron 42, but they almost always do an event just outside of a convention somewhere, PAX, any of them. And the same is true. NVIDIA hosts their party, Twitch hosts their party. We don't go to these party events. I mean, certainly if anyone on my team wanted to, I would let them if they wanted to get a break from working on content to go do that. But personally, and currently everyone on the team, we all feel the same, that it's just, and I hope the vendors, if any manufacturers are watching, don't take this the wrong way, but we feel like it's a giant waste of time. We'd rather work on the content and then sleep than go out to some event and not really do anything productive. Now, of course, there's the whole shaking hands thing, but that's really not what we're in this for. We're in this to make cool content about cool stuff. So that is what we like spending our time on, but certainly you can go to the parties if you wanted to. I think Twitch was at a bowling alley this year. So very quick, informal, unscripted, this is what PAX is like from a top level perspective. If you ever go as an attendee, it is a heck of a lot of fun, but we don't really have that perspective anymore because we've been there as media. And the only main difference is when you're there as media, you're there to really work, and it's hard work. If you're in media and you're maybe a smaller blog or whatever, we've been doing this. I've been running the site since 2008. It was a site before it was a YouTube channel. Site's still larger than the YouTube channel, and the thing to know is you don't just show up and expect to write one post recapping the day. You gotta write up every single meeting you go to and then look for cool stuff to discover while you're there. I love going to I guess I don't do it so much personally anymore because I'm managing from a top level, but if Patrick or Keegan or anyone else with us has spare time, I'll tell them, I got nothing for you for the next 2 hours. Go have fun, go check out the Indie Mega Booth. If you want to play games, great, enjoy yourself, but if you want to help the site make content, then certainly I'm good with that, so go explore and discover something that's really cool. Come back and we'll report on it. So we did that with Mages of Mystralia, we did that with 7, we did that with a couple other games in previous years, and you can find some really cool stuff down there on the show floor that is not necessarily known just because the nature of being indie, they don't have a huge marketing budget. So pretty cool stuff, but anyway, I might do one of these more condensed for future events, probably do one for CES or Computex, certainly would be cool. We'll be checking out some of the big giant technology malls at Computex, or not at Computex, but in Taipei and Shenzhen. So that'll be fun content, but as always, Patreon link to post-roll video. If you want to help us out directly, these efforts are constant and expensive, very expensive. I'll just drop a quick number. We normally will spend $3+ grand for an event, and that's obviously, as media, you spend a bit less as a consumer if you're just going alone and maybe staying in a room with a group of friends, but from the business side, we're paying for, I personally will pay for everyone's flight, or I should say the company will pay for everyone's flight, which is owned by me, but so that's several grand just to do that alone, and then the show itself is getting the rooms are several grand, getting the cabs, a couple $100 normally for the whole thing, food, couple $100. I'm paying for the team, obviously, not just myself. So money is a big thing in it, and probably not something a lot of people think about, but as I said a second ago, we'll do something more in depth on that in the future, just because it's kind of interesting discussion, I think, for anyone who either trying to get into the industry or just curious about how the industry works behind the scenes. But thank you for watching. As always, subscribe, more content, Patreon link, post-roll video. I'll see you all next time.